Hello. The purpose of this presentation is to demonstrate the Foglight end-user transaction. Now, when we first log in, this is a default dashboard. I just want to set the context for what a transaction is. Now, inside this we have an application called Ecom1. And in this dashboard, as we set Ecom1, it brings all of the available transactions and what we call request groups or URL groups into play that belong to Ecom1. So if we switch to QStore, for example, you'll see a different set of transactions and request groups. So for this demonstration, I'll look at Ecom1, and you can see Ecom1 has three different transactions. It has Ecom funnel, customer registrations, and MasterCard transactions. Now what this shows is the status of the transaction, so basically the alert that are on them. So currently we can see that Ecom funnel and Ecom shipping request group, they both have alerts on them. Now I can click on the alert to see what the alert is on the transaction, and you can see here the lost sale amount and the confirmation steps both have alarms. So I can drill on one of those alarms to see more detail on it and get some of that information. So let me click on the message so I can see the detail in the message itself. So the default alarm on these transactions is to track the steps, all the steps in the transactions, and to see when they deviate from a standard deviation from their established historical norm. So this is an easy way to put a rule on a metric that we don't know what it should be. So we don't know, for example, if 10 is good and 8 is bad, or we don't have to know that. We just track a historical norm and then go from there. So now that this funnel is in alert, I want to take you through an analysis stage, or the analysis stage of a transaction conversion analysis. So from here I can drill on this transaction, and it would now change the scope from the entire application or set of applications down to just that one transaction, which is the Ecom funnel. Now that I'm looking at the Ecom funnel, I can see that over the last 4 hours, which is my default, 602 people started and 87 people finished. And I could see as they stepped through the different stages of the transaction where those users dropped off. So I can see 316 dropped off in the beginning, this is normal to lose that many people. So basically 48% of the people who added something to their cart moved on to the next stage, which was shipping, and 35% to billing, and then so on. So we can see here that we have an alert on the exits, and the alert on the exits would mean that there is something abnormal here in terms of the number of people that are exiting on this step. And if you look at it, it also makes common sense. There's 212 people in billing. At this point, they filled out all the information. All they have to do is click on a confirm button, and they didn't do that for some reason. So this is a pretty significant drop off at that step. Now from here I can drill into exits and do further analysis. So this brings me down to a set of sessions or transactions that happen. So here, these are only sessions that people went to confirmation and didn't place the order. So we really break these sessions out separately. And what you do is you have all this metadata on these sessions, so I can do analysis. So I can sort by different things. I can sort by lost sale if I wanted to. And lost sale would either give me the decreasing amount, or if I wanted the highest lost sale, I can go right to that session. I can sort by browser. I would also be able to export these results and run pivot tables on this metadata of all these sessions that dropped off on the confirmation stage. Now the metadata that's available on these transactions, it is configurable. So these things like sale amount, lost sale amount, the login names, these are all fields that we populate at collection time as we analyze the traffic. So one of the things I'd be able to do here is I'd be able to remove fields or add fields if I added more to these specific transactions. So for example, in this case, the sale amount isn't real interesting to me because I know for a fact that none of these people bought. So what I would be able to do before I went in and did my analysis, I'd be able to exclude that metadata field. Okay, so what I can do is once I narrow this down and I look at a certain amount of things, like I can see there's a whole bunch of zip codes here that start with 0. There's a lot of people from Alabama that are failing. So I start to look at some common characteristics, and then I could drill in. So let's pick one of these zip codes that are 0 from Alabama, and then I can click on that session, and that would take me to the replay. So now I'm at the lowest level at this point. So from the replay, I can click and I can watch page by page what the user did. Or what I can do instead is I'd be able to drop right down to the end of the session and see if we get some information as to why this user left. So what I want to see is where they dropped off. So they did go to shipping, and they were on the confirmation page. On that page, they selected priority overnight. And then on the priority overnight, they went, and after they clicked there, they came to this next page, and they got an error has occurred. So you can actually see that there's an API error here. Now, an interesting thing to point out is that IT doesn't know about this problem for 2 reasons. First, it's a 200 return code, which we know in HTTP language, that's good. So they track on web error codes. Another thing is that the transaction, even though it was a problem, we can see that this transaction, if I hover over it, its end-to-end time was 190 milliseconds. So from a performance perspective, this is a very fast request. So now why did it fail? And I can see the specific component on the page that failed. And we can look at that in detail. And one of the things is, this is, when we click on this, people went here, selected priority overnight, and let's go back one and see. So this was a Visa transaction. So at this point, when they clicked on it, I know as an application person that this is trying to submit to Visa. It's trying to submit its application over there. So something went wrong when it tried to submit that bill request to pay the bill. Now I can come back here again, and I could maybe look at another session that I have with the same characteristics. So let's pick another one down here from Alabama and see if it had the same problems as we had up above. Okay. Now, what this problem ended up being, I'll just cut to the chase here, but what this problem ended up being was that anytime you would submit a request that had a zip code with a leading edge 0 in it, so in this case it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, the external interface would blow up. And the reason that is because inside our code that we're sending to Visa, we actually had the field coded as numeric. So what it did is it stripped off the leading edge 0, and this caused the problem. So that's one example of a transaction analysis, and I showed you one place to drill down. So we started all the way back from our geo application dashboard. We got an indicator that there was something wrong in that transaction. We're able to see the alert, and we're able to do an analysis on the transaction to see if we could get to a reason or even assess the impact on what this problem means. Now, a couple other places you'd be able to come in is from a custom dashboard. I can go right into that same transaction diagnostic. I could also go right into the interface if I wanted to. So I can go right into the Foglight Experience Viewer interface, and let me show you an example of that. And from that interface, I'd be able to look at that transaction directly. So that would be the interface here. And then I'd be able to go back to my search, and I'd be able to run a search right from here. So these are all my different transaction filters. So I'd be able to search right on checkout, and I could clear the criteria that I have from before. So I have some criteria up here about metric updates. So now what I can do is I can just say, let's search for everything. So let's not look for when confirmation equals 0, or let's not look for when orders placed equals 0, but let's just search. And this will give you an idea of all the transactions. So out of 200 started, there were 141 abandoned. Okay, so this concludes our presentation on a Foglight transaction analysis, and there'll be more information to follow. Thank you for attending.